Hello, everyone. And today we're at Money 2020 and we're discussing the things. And I'm really pleased to introduce Nadia Edwards-Dashti, a Chief Customer Officer. Hello, Nadia. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me in this conversation.
So the first question, how the fintech hiring landscape changed, because we see the dramatic improvements of the tools, the screening process, and on the other side, people who are seeking for the positions, they using AI tools too. So how is that affecting the process?
There's been a huge change. I think also we need to talk about the circumstance of the change. So if we go back to 2021 or 2022 in fintech, everyone was hiring. It was hard to hold on to talent because there were so many opportunities out there. So just the vibe and the attention and the care for the humans within businesses, it was really at a high. If we just remember those times, if you spoke to any leader of any business and you said to them, look, 10% of your staff may be leaving tomorrow, they'd panic and they'd say, what do you mean? Like, should we offer them more flexibility? Should we pay for their at-home desks? Should we help them with their electricity bills because they're working from home? Like, it was all wanting to make sure that everybody and all their differences could thrive and they would be happy at work. We now fast forward to where we are in 2026, and we've had 3.5, nearly 4 years of a really, really slow punch of a downturn. We've had the valuation bubble burst, right? So lots of fintechs, not lots, all fintechs are focusing on being lean and being as efficient as they can be. In that efficiency, when we look at talent and bringing AI into hiring, the circumstance right now is there's far fewer jobs than there are people. And that is because over the past 3.5 years, with the lack of funding, with the lack of sales, with the downturn that we've all been experiencing, there's been a lot of redundancies. This focus on being lean has meant that a lot of roles have been consolidated, leaving a lot of people out of work. So now we look at, what's changed for AI. You've got so many people looking for work with much fewer jobs, and just the attitude around that is really overlooking the human experience. So I really urge people to remember, keep it human-centric, because AI is definitely changing the landscape for everything, including talent and how we hire that talent. But we've got to remember the people within that process. And what I am starting to see is some excellent, hugely talented people from the fintech space are moving to edtech, are moving to femtech, are leaving fintech and going to perhaps oil and gas or some of the more traditional financial services organizations. We don't want to lose that talent. We want to retain that talent. So we must look after their experience as they're re-entering the industry.
That's fair. And I always say the market is operated in two modes, market of companies and market of people. So the coin flipped, but that's a question how the industry will go through this process. And sometimes I think the second question, sometimes the companies, they just using their positions and job positions for kind of PR activities, and how from your perspective, you can understand that the company doesn't need the talent, then they kind of using this as a hook for communicating that they alive, that they have funding, then they active on the market.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. And I think that, even, podcasts like this, video interviews like this is hugely important, because if we roll back a few years, how did you learn about a company? Maybe you read about it in the newspaper, maybe a few bits online, but actually we are bringing companies to life through podcasting and through content. And I think it offers a window into the true culture of a firm. Plus, there's so much data at our fingertips, right? So you can really look into what companies have what policies for their people. A lot of that is online and at your fingertips. You just need to do a bit of delving. It's sometimes beyond the website, but it's often in the content that's out there. Also, I always encourage people, look at LinkedIn, see who's getting promoted in these companies. Because even though I'm in the recruitment space and people put me into that zone of when someone's getting hired into a company, I think recruitment is way beyond that. It's who's getting promoted in the company, who's getting retrained in the company. And ultimately, in fintech right now, every skill set is going to be new. So really, there's a lot of roles that we could bring in where we're looking at transferable skills. Now, of course, in a lot of the fintech roles, like regulations are perfect. You need to have that exact experience. But there's many roles where you can actually bring in a bit more flexibility of that skill set, that diversity of thought. And I think the best companies and the best leaders will really lean into that.
That's true. And as coming from engineering background, I see that there are a lot of strategical changes, how people are prepare for interviews, go into interview, but in the long run, it potentially affects the knowledge market, because before that, you had to learn, you had to execute, you need to prove with the experience your knowledge, because people will ask you the things. And right now, answering and kind of sometimes even in gibberish mode, it's so easy. How do you think is it affecting the market in the long run? Because who's going to train junior engineers if everyone is using AIs and LLMs?
Yes, totally. And I think this is a huge gap and a problem that we're like trying to not look at. And it's gonna catch up with all of us, because if we're not training the juniors, what's going to happen in 3 years? So it reminds me of 2012. I remember the summer of 2012 so clearly. I was looking after, as I have done for 22 years, technologists, sales and risk people into financial services. And everybody asked me, where's everyone with 3 years experience? And I said, hey, don't you remember 2009?
Yeah.
Was anyone hiring in 2009, especially juniors? And everyone was looking for someone with 3 to 5 years experience. And I said, look, this just doesn't exist because of what we did. I really feel that we're doing this again to ourselves, because who are going to be the next generation of leaders? And I think with this, coupled with everything that's going on in society and the world of work en masse, there's a rise in entrepreneurship. And I think what we're going to see, a lot of these juniors that are coming out of university, highly skilled, highly educated, skills that they have grown themselves, not the traditional skills that we're used to talking about in an organization. I think it's going to really shake up the world of work, how we work, what happens with fractional work, contract work. And I think we need to be ready for it.
Thank you so much for your answers today, and it was a pleasure to discuss.